James could think of nothing but Kathy. Even witnessing an airplane crash was on his mental back burner. Something was not connecting with his story, and James was at a loss to know what it was. One thing for sure, James did not believe in ghosts. He decided to rent an apartment in the area while he tried to get to the bottom of what he saw and witnessed in that old Volkswagen with Kathy. James had saved his money during his few years in the Army, so he was okay financially. James was not going to leave this part of Georgia before he could come up with some logical answer to the strange turn of events. The community in and around the Blue Springs Hollow Crossroads Junction published a free Trade Your Stuff paper that also listed houses and apartments for sale and rent. The apartment that caught his eye was a one-bedroom apartment above a garage on Blue Springs Hollow Road. James was thinking that area was where Joe said his uncle saw the ghost when changing the tire on his hay wagon. If Kathy was in fact a ghost, she would probably be haunting that area, and if possible, he could meet up with her again. When James pulled into the driveway of the apartment address on Blue Springs Hollow Road, an elderly man and his wife came out of the house, and after James introduced himself, the man said he would show James the apartment. The apartment was immaculate, and the price was reasonable, so James said he would rent it. James did not want to lease for 1 year, so he told the man he would pay 6 months in advance with 10% more than the asking price if they would sign a 6-month lease. The older gentleman accepted James' offer without any haggling. When they started down the stairs from the garage apartment, the sun had set and it was dark, with one dimly lit light hanging on the corner of the building. The old man heard it at the same time as James did. It was the sound of an air-cooled Volkswagen engine coming up the Blue Springs Hollow Road. James called on all his being to keep from acknowledging he heard the Volkswagen, as if it was just a normal sound on any road in Georgia. But the old man froze on the stairway and gripped the railing as if he was about to fall. James glanced toward the road just as the Volkswagen passed, but he could not see the driver. There was no mistake. James knew it was Kathy's Volkswagen. James asked the old man if he was okay, hoping he would have something to say about the Volkswagen. He momentarily hesitated before answering James. Some strange things happened in these parts over the last 4 months. It's nothing, and I am sure you don't want to know. James asked him what kind of strange things. The old man commenced to tell James about what he meant about strange things. I have never seen anything, but some in these parts say a ghost is driving around these parts in an old Volkswagen. I normally would not give stuff like this a second thought, but a friend of mine says he saw her, and he is not one to make stuff up. He was changing a flat on his hay wagon when he saw her. He said her face was glowing, and he thought it was the moon reflecting off of her face. James asked the old man if his friend had a nephew who worked at the gas station up on the main road. The old man said yes, and his name is Joe. James now had a time frame on Kathy. She must have been in the area for 4 months. Although James knew all this was not adding up, he was going to make it his plan to see Kathy again. Not only did he want some answers, he was attracted to the girl people were calling a ghost. The only thing about this ghost story that was causing James some concern was the disappearing act the Volkswagen performed. The first night James spent in the apartment, he slept with his window open. Throughout the night he heard a Volkswagen cruising up and down the road. He knew it was Kathy, and he was determined to see her again. The next night, James walked out on the Blue Springs Hollow Road and headed in the direction of the gas station, which was about 2 miles from the apartment. No sooner had he started walking in the direction of the gas station when he heard the Volkswagen slowly coming up behind him. When Kathy passed, her face was glowing with a bluish tint, and the moon was not in the sky on this night. James was not frightened. He just wanted to talk to Kathy again because he was attracted to her like he had never been attracted to anyone before. James stood on the side of the road and watched the tail lights of the Volkswagen disappear as it turned on the main road at the Blue Springs Hollow crossroads. Not a night went by that he did not hear or see Kathy and the Volkswagen. James began to devise a plan to see and talk to her again. Then the first cold and rainy night, he put his plan into action. Kathy always came up behind him real slow. Tonight, James was going to jump out in front of her Volkswagen, where she would be required to stop or run over him. James stood on the side of the road, facing the direction Kathy always came. When he saw her coming up the road, he knew her speed would make it easy for her to stop before she ran over him. At the proper time, James jumped in front of the Volkswagen, and Kathy came to a sudden stop. James then ran up to the front of the Volkswagen and placed his body over the front trunk lid. Then he placed his face up next to the window. He yelled at her, "Let me in the car, Kathy." Kathy just sat with her hands on the steering wheel. The passenger door was not locked, so James opened it and jumped in before Kathy could pull away. James did not know what to say, so he just sat looking at her as she continued up the road. The first thing James noticed was the stream of tears running down her face. James told Kathy she needed to tell him what was this all about, and he was not going to get out of her Volkswagen until she leveled with him. Kathy began to say over and over, "This was not supposed to happen." James asked her what was not supposed to happen. She told James she wanted him to drive, so she pulled off at a wide place in the road, and she and James got out of the Volkswagen at the same time, and they met in front of the car. Kathy gave James a quick hug as she went to the passenger side and got in. James placed the Volkswagen in gear and pulled out. He did not want to be in a moving automobile while he and Kathy talked, so he was looking for a secluded place to pull over. He remembered seeing a junkyard that looked deserted most of the time and was a fourth of a mile off the main road. He turned the Volkswagen down a dirt road and parked behind the junkyard that appeared to be a good location not to be seen. The rain was coming down hard, and he momentarily sat and listened to it hit the top of the Volkswagen. Kathy no longer had tears running down her face, but she looked scared and confused.